It's been actually, Patty knows it's been a long 2 days for me, a very long 2 days. We celebrated the opening of a resource center in Poplar, California, which I had given two thoughts about before yesterday, and they opened a center named after Larry Itliong. And I remember about a year and a half ago, Patty, I asked you, hey, do you know anything about the center in Poplar? And Patty was like, there's a center in Poplar named for my dad. You know, so we learned a lot about them. It was exciting. We had an event last night where we celebrated that, and I had to apologize to Liz Morris and to Attorney General Bonta, our mayor, our vice mayor, because I forgot to introduce them. I even forgot to introduce Patty. I was rambling along about my story as the child of a field laborer. My father died before the contracts were signed. He was in the room when Larry called for the vote to create the strike. I know because I was there playing on the swings in the back of the building. But this today is so much to me. I want to thank everyone who's worked on it. I don't know if Patty's going to mention it, but I have to thank Arnold Morrison, who was there with Eliseo for like 9 out of the 10 days he was painting. Arnie had no idea. We learned a lot about mural making that week. My sister was there 5 of those days. Arlene Villaruz Gonzalez and Frank, Priscilla, and Larry Bacchus. Am I saying that right? They were there as well, helping to paint. Larry was planning on putting up a mural at his house, and he was thrilled that he was going to get to learn how to do a mural by a professional. But today has so much meaning for all of us. Yesterday we had people from San Diego come up, teachers. All they did was hang out at Reuters Hall while we were in the middle of the County Line Road. And they just talking to people, just talking to the visitors, just talking about people who work in labor strikes, just seeing those people learn so much, and they just sat at tables waiting for us. They want to make it a pilgrimage to come to Delano with teachers to learn about Larry Itliong and the labor movement firsthand. It's amazing to me what can be learned just from talking to each other in a venue that celebrates our history and celebrates our heroes. And Uncle Larry, and I know him, is one of my heroes, always has been. So I thank everyone for being here. I think it's a beautiful mural. If you haven't seen it or peeked at it, man, it is gorgeous. So I look forward to that, and I go to Frank. I'd like to recognize that our Attorney General for the state of California has entered the room, Mr. Bonta.
Well, I'm glad Suzanne preceded me because she did the microphone just right for both of us, so I didn't have to lower it for myself like usual. Anyway, welcome, Mr. Attorney General. Welcome to Delano, welcome to our distinguished school. This is a very, very historic occasion. And you guys unfortunately are going to figure out my age, but during the time of Larry Itliong, Cesar Chavez, and the whole movement, I was in high school. And so I lived through it, and was very exposed to it, fortunately, because my dad was mayor of Delano at the time. And so we lived it firsthand. There was a lot of division. It was, division amongst families. And we got to a good place because of what happened. Workers' wages went up, which they should have. There was more recognition of needing better conditions in the fields. And so that started a big evolution of where we are today with farm workers. And it's very important because back in those days it was very true. You could have people working in 104, 110 degree weather, and nobody was sent home. And even from a business standpoint, it wasn't very bright because nobody's going to move in that heat when you're under a grapevine. If you've ever been under grapevines, you know what I'm talking about. And you know, the air is suffocating you. It just was not working. But things moved on. Larry Itliong was very instrumental in moving things along. And I'll tell you, without Larry Itliong and the Filipino farm workers, the farm worker movement would not have gotten off the ground. It took him bringing... And I'm telling you firsthand, that's the way it went. It's the honest truth. If they wouldn't have combined with the Latino farm workers, nothing would have happened. Because they tried divide and conquer and the whole thing, it didn't work. They stayed united because Larry was strong, and he made sure they stayed united. So that you just have to live it to really know what it's about. I'm happy that there's teachers that are going to come and learn about the experience, but I lived it, I was there, and the metamorphosis from those days to now is fantastic, and I'll tell you why, because we are all united in this room today, and it wasn't like that back in the 60s. So I promised my fellow board member, Efren, that I would keep it short, so I will. But I just wanted to give a little bit of history on it from a personal perspective as to how it was. And this is a result of people coming together, and we're in the midst of one of the greatest schools in the state of California, or rather, I would rather say the nation. And look at all the different people here. It just warms one's heart to see how we have progressed from those days and to now. And I have to know that Mr. Itliong is smiling upon us, because this was his dream. Not only farm workers getting ahead, but people getting together, people understanding each other. Anyway, again, welcome.
Okay, at this time, you can tell that sometimes I'm used to the mic back away a little bit. My voice just projects. But again, there are many kids that when we celebrate this era and we talk about Cesar Chavez and they make the connection, oh, you're Chavez too. And they say, oh, you guys are relatives. I said, no, I knew who he was. You know, I met him on a couple occasions, and you know, I shook his hand. But indirectly, I met Mr. Itliong when, I don't know if she remembers, Patty's sister, Maria. One day we were in band and she needed a ride home, and I gave her a ride home to make sure she was home safe. So indirectly, I did meet Itliong long ago without even putting two and two together. And I still, in the faded memory, I still see Patty there playing in the front. And so again, it's just one of those things that it's a small world, because yeah, indirectly I did meet Mr. Bonta. At this time, I would like to invite the Attorney General, Mr. Bonta. He is willing to share a few words with you. Mr. Bonta.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here, Rob Bonta, California Attorney General, and just thankful for the opportunity to be here, not just today, but this weekend. Started in Poplar yesterday for the groundbreaking and ribbon cutting for the Larry Itliong Resource Center, and spent the day in a number of iconic locations that are meaningful for the movement, and thankful to have the opportunity to culminate it today here with the unveiling of the mural. And this is personally important to me. And I'm really thankful for your commitment to continuing to make sure we tell our stories as diverse and beautiful and powerful and inspiring as they are, to make sure that those silences that have been there for too long and so long are now filled with voice, and that the gaps in our histories are filled with meaning. And the story of Larry Itliong, to me, is one of the most powerful, inspirational, and beautiful stories of this state and this nation, and for too long has been untold. But that is changing because of your work and your commitment. It's happening in other places and spaces, and so that's very exciting. And for me, it's meaningful because for part of my childhood, I grew up in La Paz, the headquarters for the UFW movement. I lived in a trailer. My mother and my father, my brother was born in Bakersfield at the time, my older sister, and my father worked in the front office with Cesar Chavez. My mom worked in the preschool. She was there with Dolores Huerta. We used to host Philip Veracruz and the other great Filipino leaders in our trailer for Filipino breakfast when they would come to visit. And so that was part of my history, and growing up, I knew that story of that beautiful collaboration between Filipino workers and Latino workers, and how together they created one of the most powerful transformational movements in the history of our country and our world, really. But I was, when I would look in the history books in elementary school, in high school, even in college, I would never see that story. And I was a history major in college, so I started committing to telling those stories. My senior essay, my senior thesis, if you will, was about the Exeter incident that led to the death of a murder of a Filipino man, and it was part of the racial tensions that involved a lot of the racial discrimination that Filipino farm workers were facing. And then I was an assembly member for almost a decade, and one of the first bills I introduced was AB 123 to require the contributions of Filipino Americans to the California farm workers movement. Thank you. And I was with Dolores Huerta yesterday, and she testified in support of that bill, and it was very important to her and others that story be told. And then the next year, or maybe 2 years later, I introduced it, and it became the law of California, AB 7, which creates Larry Itliong Day on October 25th, today. So very meaningful to me, a full circle in many ways that we're here on October 25th on Larry Itliong Day to continue to tell that incredible story of Larry Itliong. And the truth is that Larry is responsible in so many ways for starting it all. For that moment in the Filipino community hall where all the workers came in and they looked at each other and they said, "Are we going to go the easy route, or are we going to go the right route?" And the path for justice, the path that's harder, the path that's going to put everything at risk, everything that we fought for and worked for ourselves, for our families, and of course they went the right route, which was the harder path, but the path for justice and the path that changed things. Reached out to the National Farmers Association a week later after going out on strike in Delano in 1965, and to join forces, and of course became the now world-renowned United Farm Workers of America. But Larry Itliong, the Delano Grape Strike in 1965, the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, that's the heart of it. That's the epicenter. That's where it started. And that's the story that needs to be told, because for too long our monoms were, their courage, their power was not honored in the way it should. They needed to be remembered. They must be remembered for what they did, for the sacrifices they made, the courage they showed. And I think it's also important for our young people to be inspired by that story, especially for, not just for Filipino Americans, although certainly for Filipino Americans, but for all young people to see that story of change and transformation, and that when you fight for justice, you can achieve and realize justice. So I'm thankful for today, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Thank you for telling Larry's story. Symbols matter, statements and icons matter, and Larry deserves as many of them as we can put up in as many places as possible, including right here in this beautiful school. So honored to be with you, and thankful for the opportunity.